It's April 26th. It's Sunday. I'm Charlie Garrett, and this is the CG Prophecy Report. Pardon me. That and a lot of other things to go over on today's report. Let's see here. We got some news from Israel. You know, before we get into the news from Israel, another attempt, as you probably know, several people showed up and they didn't know that there was an attempt on Trump's life again last night. And how somebody can get into the hotel at all with guns and knives and stuff. He didn't get close to Trump, but how he could even get in there is kind of surprising. But I have a feeling that within the next 12 hours, Marjorie Taylor Greene is going to come out and say it was all staged, just like she did with the last one. We got people that are not... Once you get TDS, it just sinks right in, and it infects you, and it never comes out again. You have to understand that Donald Trump he's a businessman that wanted to turn the ship of America around. When you saw him on The Apprentice, what was it, the one where he fired people? What was that called?
That's it. The
The what? Okay, The Apprentice. When you saw him on there, you knew what you were getting. You get the same guy that has been presenting himself for 40, 50 years in the public light. You know what you're going to get. And people are surprised about this, that he actually continues to act the same way. You take the good with the bad. I like most of the bad that people find bad. I like it. He's refreshing. He keeps people on their toes. He was saved again for another day, and I'm pleased about that. I personally think he's a great president. People that don't, that's fine. I didn't think that the last president was worth his salt. And not only that, I don't know if you heard about Tucker Carlson. You know, he came out and he apologized for having endorsed Trump. And I thought, can you imagine not endorsing Trump when there's somebody like Kamala Harris that is running against? What do? Right? These people, they get TDS and it becomes an infection. And don't let that happen to you. If you don't like Trump, don't like him. But don't let it dictate every decision you make in life and to nullify the good that happened, right? We don't want a Kamala Harris type in office. But people forget so quickly, and all of a sudden it's all about what they don't like about an individual. Don't do that. We got some news from Israel, from the Times of Israel. Navy says commandos conducted unprecedented operation amid war thousands of kilometers away. Now imagine, America does this all the time and we take it for granted. We've seen all the Hollywood movies and America goes over and, that's what we do. But to think of little Israel in the middle of nowhere, sending people on submarines far, far away and going into foreign lands, it almost seems unheard of. But they did it. The Israeli Navy disclosed that its Shatayet 13, which is like our special forces, the best of the best commando unit, conducted an unprecedented operation during the multi-front war of recent years at a location thousands of kilometers from Israel, in an area where it had never operated before. The naval commandos carried out the operation without any backup or ability to extract them if it went awry, a military official said, because of the distance from Israel. No further details were given on the nature of the commando operation, including exactly when or where it was conducted, though the official said it was successful. Now, think of that. In 20 years, we're going to have a show come out. They're going to say back in, the 2020s, Israel Navy went to this country, they did this and this, and it'll be a great movie. But right now, we're just left wondering what happened. Additionally, the Navy disclosed that as part of the recent war with Iran, a submarine operated at the farthest ever distance from Israel in the history of the submarine fleet. Submarines were deployed at 3 arenas simultaneously during the war, with thousands of kilometers between them. Additionally, during the war, the Navy was involved in some 40 aerial threat incidents, shooting down several dozen drones from both Iran and Lebanon. The Navy, with its warships, conducted 53 strikes in Lebanon and 6 in the Gaza Strip amid the war with Iran. And the Naval Intelligence Division provided information and planning for some 95 airstrikes in Iran. The information was published by the IDF as Vice Admiral Ayal Harel took over the Navy from Vice Admiral David Sa'ar Salama, who was retiring from the military after 4.5 years in the role and 39 years of service. Speaking at the ceremony, IDF Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Ayal Zamir said that the military's new multi-year plan includes a decision out of an operational necessity to expand the Israeli Navy and enhance its ability to operate with greater lethality at greater depths and longer ranges, recognizing its long-range, lethal, and decisive capabilities, both overt and covert. From Ynet, I report on this every year. This year it's being reported on. Global Jewish population at 15.8 million, still below pre-Holocaust level. So there were so many killed in the Holocaust that they have not recovered that number as of this date. Of the total, about 7.2 million, roughly 45% of the global Jewish population live in the land of Israel, while approximately 6.3 million, about 40%, reside in the U.S. It was some time ago that it started to exceed in Israel over the U.S., and it's been going that way ever since. Together, the two countries are at home to about 85% of Jews worldwide. In two countries, 85% of the Jews. By comparison, in 1939, on the eve of World War II, the global Jewish population was estimated at 16.6 million, with only 449,000, about 3%, living in what would later become the State of Israel. Beyond Israel and the U.S., Jewish communities are spread across several countries, though in significantly smaller numbers. France has about 436,000, Canada 407,000, in the UK 315,000, which I bet that number will start going down quickly in the UK. Argentina, 168,000, Germany, 126,000, Russia, 120,000, and Australia at 117,000. Compared with data published 2 years ago, the Jewish population has declined in several countries. France saw a slight drop from 440,000 to 436,000, while Russia experienced a sharper decline from 132 to 120,000, nearly 10% over 2 years. So Russia, they are bleeding Jews quickly, and that will continue to happen. Argentina also recorded a decrease from 171 to 168,000. In contrast, Canada saw an increase despite a rise in reported anti-Semitic incidents, growing from 398,000 in 2023 to 407,000 in the latest report. I wonder, this is just me, I didn't look at any other statistics why Canada went up, but I wonder if some of them are imports from the U.S. because they're very liberal and they don't like Trump and maybe they moved north, some of them. I don't know if that's the case or not, but it wouldn't surprise me at all. Got some news from Christianity, CBS, Pope Leo. I got a couple things on the Pope here. Pope Leo criticizes idolatry of self in latest rebuke of Iran conflict. Enough with war. Pope Leo XIV offered his strongest condemnation yet of the war in Iran, appearing to take multiple veiled shots at President Trump. This was a little over a week ago, and since then he said, no, I wasn't talking about Trump at all. So he's not only not a good pope, he's a liar. But speaking out against military actions, some adults proudly boast about. The rebuke during a prayer vigil for peace at St. Peter's Basilica comes days after the Pope was said it was truly unacceptable for Mr. Trump to declare that a whole civilization will die if the Strait of Hormuz remain closed. We've already talked about that. I mentioned it at the end of last week, that Trump always speaks in hyperbole. He's not going to kill an entire civilization of people. Not going to happen. But people take him and what he says they take as the gospel, unless it's something they agree with, and then they understand it as hyperbole. But people love to get Trump wrong when it's convenient for them. Enough with the idolatry of self and money. Enough with the display of force. Enough with war. True strength is manifested in serving life, Leo said, speaking in Italian. The Pope did not mention Mr. Trump by name during the service. Well, he doesn't mention Jesus by name either. I mean, and when I said he's not a good pope, no pope is good. All right, they're just, it's a flawed religious ideal that was introduced later in Christianity. It took over as the big main thing for, we'll say, 15 to 1600 years until the Reformation, and people started to break away from that. But for a while, it was the only thing, and they think that they're still the only thing, and they're not. They're apostate religious body. And, I'm not saying that there aren't saved within the Catholic Church. I know saved Catholics. But for the most part, it is a group of people that think that they have to earn their way to heaven, that they are saved by being baptized in the Catholic Church. They think they're good because of that. It's flawed religious expression. So I would ask that if you are in the Catholic Church and you're watching this, that you would pick up your Bible and read it and compare it with what is taught in the Catholic Church. Most of the people in this church were Catholics. Some of us, like me, were Catholic Light, which was Episcopal when I grew up. And we all here in this church have picked up the Bible and said, you know what? What I was taught does not match what the Word of God says. And that's what takes precedent. Not catechisms, not books of order and papal bulls. That kind of stuff won't get you to heaven. It's contrary to the Bible. From My Charisma, a new religious alliance? Pope Leo's mosque visit sparks questions. Now, this is supposed to be the big poopah of Christianity in the world, and he's visiting a mosque, okay? And when he's in there, he's not just visiting, he's making alliances with these people. Is unity between the Catholic Church and Islam right around the corner? Well, it wouldn't surprise me at all. And one of you will know this. Somebody tell me, what is the link between Catholicism and Islam? There is a link. It's called Mary. Mary. They both hold to basically worshiping Mary. Okay, there's an entire chapter of the Quran which is dedicated to Mary. That's the link, and they will continue to grow together because of the Mary thing. Anyway, during a trip to Algeria, Pope Leo visited the Great Mosque of Algiers, where he was seen observing the Islamic custom of walking around the mosque barefoot with the imam. The Pope also made a post on X about unity between Catholics and Muslims. Just so you know, the unity between Catholics and Muslims is basically derived from the Roman Catholic Church saying that they are saved. Jews and Muslims are saved through adherence to the Abrahamic faith. They don't need Jesus in order to be saved. They may believe that Jesus is the one that saves them, but he does it through their genealogical connection to Abraham. Totally apostate, totally heretical, and it is, when I say heretical, people don't understand what the word means, and they say, he doesn't believe in a mid-trib rapture, and so that's a heresy. It's not. The difference between a heresy and bad doctrine is?
Belief of who Jesus is.
Well, Jesus is one of the parts of a heresy. It is, will what you hold to and teach keep the next person from being saved? That is a heresy. If you teach something that is incorrect, you can actually be saved and be a heretic. You were saved by the blood of Jesus Christ and you just got a false idea about something and now you teach that. You're a heretic, but what you're teaching them will not bring them to salvation. That is the definition of a heresy. The Catholic Church is the definition of heretical because of their stand. The Pope also made a post on X about the unity between Catholics and Muslims, writing, communion between Christians and Muslims takes shape under the mantle of Our Lady of Africa, meaning Mary. In Algeria, the maternal love of Lala Maryam gathers everyone as children with our rich diversity and our shared aspiration for dignity, love, justice, and peace. In a world where division and wars sow pain and death, living in unity and peace is a compelling sign. This news comes as the Vatican previously opened up a prayer room for Muslims, which I reported on last year, and the worldwide push for more to accept Islam. There's no question that Christians are called to love. Jesus himself modeled this by sitting with those society rejected and extending grace without hesitation. However, love in the biblical sense is never detached from truth. While gestures of unity and peace may appear noble on the surface, Scripture draws a clear line regarding spiritual agreement. Christianity does not teach that all paths lead to God. Instead, it proclaims an exclusive truth found in the words of Jesus Christ. John 14:6, that's right, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. This is reality. Salvation is not found in systems, rituals, or alternative beliefs, but in a relationship with Jesus Christ alone. The growing emphasis on interfaith unity raises an important and sobering question. At what point does unity become compromise? Standing in solidarity with beliefs that contradict the core message of the gospel blurs lines of truth and instead condones actions and beliefs contrary to what Scripture tells us is true. In a world increasingly driven by calls for unity at any cost, Christians are faced with a challenge: remain loving, yet unwavering. We can and must extend kindness, build bridges, and seek peace wherever possible, but they are also called to boldly share the truth of the gospel without apology, because at the center of the Christian faith is not just a message of love, it is the person of Jesus Christ, and unchanging belief that He alone is the way to salvation. Gateway Pundit: The Unholy Alliance. Hal Lambert raises alarming questions after Obama strategist David Axelrod was spotted at the Vatican as American Pope Leo XIV launches attacks on President Trump. So, the Catholic Church decided that we need to have influence in America. So they appointed an American Pope for the first time ever. They appointed him from the area of, where is he from? Chicago. And all of a sudden the Chicago Mafia is over in the Vatican at the time when it looks like Trump is being excoriated by the Catholic Church. They're trying to drive the Catholic vote in America over to the Democrats so that Trump gets in trouble with the Congress, and eventually we will lose the White House as well. That is what is going on. The left are a bunch of sneaky people. There's not a decent person in the Democrat Party left in America. If you have lasted this long and you don't see what is going on in the Democrat Party of America with the murder of little babies, with the perversion that is being brought against children, against families, you are not paying attention, and therefore you are not a good citizen of your nation. All right, that's all there is to it. I am at the point now in my life where I understand that there is real evil being perpetrated by the Democrat Party of the United States of America. If you don't see that, you are a part of the problem. You need to step out of that and go somewhere else. I'm not saying to go Republican. You can go independent. You can do whatever you want. But there is real evil coming out of the Democrat Party of the United States to the point where there is nothing good left in there. Amen. Nothing. Okay. MSN. Trump yanks millions from Catholic charities amid Pope feud. Say the wrong thing, you lose the funding. What's that? Dern. Got some news from the Mideast and Africa today. From Cauldron Pool, British citizenship test now requires applicants to know the difference between Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha. If you want to be a citizen in the UK, you got to know the Muslim holidays. A decade ago, Peter Hitchens warned that the atheist campaign to expel Christianity from Western public life would not produce a neutral, secular vacuum, but would instead open the door to something else entirely. In an interview on Conversations, he observed, when they drive Christianity out of Europe, as they're rapidly succeeding in doing, they will not create an atheist paradise. They will leave a space for Islam. We've got Muslims filling up the streets of France, for example. They say, well, we're a neutral country. We're a-religious. Everybody can have religion, but you can't practice it in the government. That is not actually true. They are taking over streets. They're bowing down towards Mecca 5 times a day. And not only that, when they burn down churches, nothing is done. Okay? There's a force that is going against their own supposed policies in Europe because of this. His point was not that Islam advances by force of argument alone, but that civilizations cannot remain religiously empty. The attempt to force Christianity from public life, education, law, and government does not produce neutrality. It produces a religious vacancy. And that vacancy, Hitchens warned, will inevitably be filled. Those people who now campaign for Christianity to be driven more or less out of public life may be very unpleasantly surprised when, having succeeded in doing that, they simply cleared a space for Islam to take over. We saw it in the election of Barack Obama. He's a Muslim. We saw it in the election of the mayor of New York, an avowed Muslim. We are seeing it in areas in America because we're not learning from the European model. When Christianity is driven from the public square, it is not instantly replaced by another historic faith. Instead, the state expands to fill the void. It claims neutrality, but in practice it begins to function as a god, defining morality, adjudicating truth, shaping identity, and demanding allegiance. In predominantly Christian nations, this expansion is directed first and foremost against Christianity itself, because Christianity represents a rival source of ultimate authority. Statism, then, is not the final destination. It is a clearing mechanism. It works to level the religious landscape, to privatize, marginalize, and relativize all competing faiths, but especially the one that once defined the civilization. In doing so, it creates a managed, flattened public square in which no transcendent authority is allowed to stand above the state. Yet, this arrangement is inherently unstable. A society cannot live indefinitely on procedural neutrality or bureaucratic authority alone. The state can suppress and regulate religion, but it cannot replace the need for a coherent, lived faith. And so, over time, the space it has cleared becomes available for a more substantive religious system to take root. Fast forward to 2026, and this trajectory is becoming visible in the United Kingdom. The British citizenship test now requires applicants to distinguish between Islamic festivals such as Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha, asking which festival marks the end of Ramadan, the month of fasting. Eid al-Fitr is the festival of breaking the fast, while Eid al-Adha is associated with the culmination of the Hajj pilgrimage and the theme of sacrifice. On the surface, it may simply appear to be a civic literacy, but it also signals something deeper. The state, having distanced itself from its own Christian foundations, now takes on the role of mediator between competing religions, transmitting their basic forms as part of civic identity. The issue is not merely that citizenship now includes knowledge of another's religious festivals. It is that a civilization once shaped by Christianity now finds itself instructing citizens in the internal practices of a different faith, not as outsiders looking in, but as participants in a public shared order. Bad stuff for the UK. From the Times of India, Pakistan and Bangladesh migrants are faking that they are gay to get asylum in the UK. Hey, that rhymed. Yeah, and they're letting them in. They just lie. They come in, and then they're not gay at all, but now they're in. Epic Times, Spain grants legal status to 500,000 illegal immigrants under royal decree. They're national suicide. They're killing themselves. From the Post-Millennial, Canadian media refused to name Toronto Jewish restaurant shooting suspect Mohammed Mahdi or his Muslim faith. They don't want to say that it was a Muslim. The news, just like CNN. When it happens, they right under the table. They just say, oh, there was a shooting. Next day, it's all gone. Yahoo! IDF destroys Hezbollah rocket launcher that fired from inside a school in Lebanon. War crime. Mongolia, from Itar TASS. Russia sees Mongolia as key ally, says Gerasimov. We consider Mongolia to be one of Russia's most important partners, with which cooperation has traditionally been based on friendship, trust, and good neighborliness. The Army general said that Russia-Mongolian cooperation is carried out in the spirit of comprehensive strategic partnership and on the basis of agreements reached during the meeting of the leaders of the two countries in September 2024 in Ulaanbaatar. So, there you go. They're aligned with the U.S., they're aligned with Russia, they're aligned with China. They're the key pivotal turning point of the entire world. Well, Israel is, and then that's the other turning point. We got a couple turning points on Mongolia. Keep your eye out for those guys. I got a great one for Mongolia next week. Get ready. Zero Hedge. U.S. scientists crack superconductor code. Zero energy loss moves closer to reality. Great stuff. Researchers at the Department of Energy, Argonne National Laboratory, have discovered how tiny changes in superhydride structure enable superconductivity at near room temperatures but extreme pressure, offering clues for designing more practical superconductors. Why is this important? Because superconducting usually needs to be at almost absolute zero, and now they can do it at almost room temperature. Giant difference. Researchers revealed that superconductors allow electricity to flow without resistance, meaning no energy is lost as heat. The property makes them useful for technologies such as MRI scanners, particle accelerators, magnetic levitation, trains, and some power transmission systems. They also highlighted that most superconductors, however, only work at extremely low temperatures, often hundreds of degrees below 0 Fahrenheit. Keeping materials that cold requires complex and costly cooling systems, which limits where the superconductors can be used. Now, researchers in the United States of America have helped take a step toward easing that limitation. They have gained new insight into a class of materials called superhydrides that can become superconducting at much higher temperatures, around 10 degrees Fahrenheit. They added a small amount of yttrium to the lanthanum superhydride to make it more stable and reduce the pressure required. Now, if they had emailed me 10 years ago, I would have told them to do that, but they didn't, so I didn't. After forming the superconducting material at high pressure and temperature, the team used high-energy X-rays from the APS to study its structure. We focused an intense X-ray beam onto a sample only a few micrometers thick and about 10 to 20 micrometers across. The recent APS upgrade made these measurements possible. Its brighter, more tightly focused X-ray beam allows researchers to study extremely small samples while changing the pressure. That beam allowed us to separate signals coming from the tiny sample itself as opposed to those coming from the surrounding materials and diamond anvils. The team found that small differences in how atoms are arranged in a crystalline lattice can strongly affect superconductivity. They identified 2 different crystal structures, each becoming superconducting at slightly different temperature. Researchers also highlighted that although the pressures used in the experiments are still very high, about 1.4 million times atmospheric pressures, the researchers see this as a part of a path forward. They are adding more elements to lower the pressure further with the goal of making these materials practical. So that's a great step forward. If they can get the pressures down, we're going to have, it's going to be a completely different dynamic very quickly. It's a dangerous world, including the inevitable plagues noted in the book of Revelation. From Zero Hedge, Biden FDA knew about COVID vaccine stroke risk and kept Americans in the dark. They knew about it, and they have the paperwork now to prove it. Senate investigators spent months reviewing roughly 2,000 pages of federal records. What they found is damning. FDA and CDC officials under the Biden admin identified a significant stroke risk tied to Pfizer's COVID-19 bivalent booster in seniors, and never breathed a word to the public. Senator Ron Johnson sent a formal letter to HHS Secretary Kennedy Jr. laying out the evidence. He wasn't speculating. He was citing the government's own files. HHS records show that as early as October 2022, federal health officials identified a potential connection between the Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 bivalent booster and ischemic stroke for individuals over the age of 65. An ischemic stroke means a blockage of blood to the brain. Between November 2022 and March 2023, 7 separate analyses of incoming data flagged the same stroke signal, specifically in adults over 65. CDC data cited by Johnson shows 226 stroke cases reported between August 22 and February 2023, with additional cases surfacing throughout 2023 and 2024. Despite the risk, the Biden admin issued no formal warnings, no health alert network message, no changes to booster recommendations for seniors. Nothing. Instead, in February 2023, HHS quietly hired a private contractor, Lucas LLC, to conduct a deeper internal investigation dubbed the Stroke Project. Publicly, officials kept insisting the vaccines were safe and effective. From the initial detection of the safety signal in late 2022, health officials continued to say that vaccine was safe while simultaneously searching for evidence to support that assertion. They lied to people. Many people died. They got strokes in the brain. Off they go. Their money is now open for the children to go spend. It helps stimulate the economy. The government gets its pie. It's all about money. They don't care about you at all in the Democrat Party of the United States of America. Google was implicit in this. Why? Because they shunned voices that were saying exactly this type of thing. They blocked people on YouTube. People lost their fortunes because of people like that. And we're still facing all of these things coming out to this day, years and years later. Gateway Pundit, son of legendary Australian cricketer Shane Warne, blames his father's sudden death on forced COVID vaccine. Zero Hedge, drought engulfs 60% of U.S. as farmers begin spring planting. All over the U.S. we got terrible drought. It's happened before. It's not unprecedented, but it is scary when you're a farmer and you don't have any rainwater coming down. And if you're in Sarasota, Florida, you haven't had any for a while, and you're out trying to keep all of your little plants alive because they can't reach down to the water table. The bigger trees can, and you don't have to water them yet, but bad problem in Florida. Continue to pray for rain in Sarasota, Florida. Although I remember we had a very, very bad time 2 years ago. It was the driest summer that I remember in my whole life, and I stood right here on Sunday, and I said, as we were closing, I said, Lord, we need rain. And out of the blue came Hurricane Debbie, and we got more rain than in the history of Sarasota, Florida, ever. And then 2 months later, within 2 months, we had two hurricanes that brought in tons of rain and flooding this deep in certain people's houses, which we're still fixing. Anyway, morality. The post-millennial. Portland's county gives $470,000 in rent aid to illegal aliens and bans ICE. They're giving $500,000 to illegals in Portland. Gateway Pundit. California. Taxpayers footing bill for homeless illegal aliens in shelters to get sex change procedures, including breast implants. California. Mail Online. Woke Boston mayor hands out $500 haircut and massage vouchers to migrants despite city's budget plunging $50 million in the red. And when she got caught, she stopped doing it. She says, it was a mistake. Gateway Pundit. Illinois moves trans suspect in child murder to women's jail, pays for his sex change surgery. So we got Portland, Oregon, California, Boston, Illinois. I mean, does any of you want to move to a liberal-run city? I mean, hello, it's like saying, here, let me open my brain, get a scooper and just scoop it out, right?
No, well, Satan lives there already.
Oh, he already does. From Fox, not my brain, in there. And let's make that clear here. From Fox, Catholic nuns caring for dying patients fight New York trans rule and face jail time. Okay, this is New York. Law signed by Governor Kathy Hochul requires nursing homes to follow gender identity rules or face penalties. So we're once again attacking nuns because of their faith. LifeSite, Federal Appeals Court rules Iowa can ban LGBT indoctrination in schools. Good job, Iowa. Breitbart, Disney parks quietly bring back ladies and gentlemen greetings. They've lost so many billions of dollars. They are suffering so badly that they'll do anything to get people to come back. I saw an article yesterday that if you go and you want water, you have to pay $4 for a single bottle. You know what I would do? Take your bottle with you, and then when you need water, go to the tap and just fill it up, and then you got your water, okay? I don't understand the bottled water thing. I don't. I grew up on tap water, and the most disgusting tap water on the planet, wasn't it? Literally. If you go, I still have a well there at the house, and if you go to that well and you take a sip, you will not believe how bad it tastes. It's all sulfur. We could not get a lather. You get more lather by jumping into the bay, the Gulf of Mexico, and lathering. No kidding. And then we would, if it rained, we would get under the eaves of the house because it was fresh water and you didn't stink when you were done. And we called it horse water. Then we'd take a horse water shower. And I realized why they call it horse water is because it was so cold you went like a horse. So there you go, horse water showers. And you get a great lather. You'd smell good until, you had to take a shower with your sulfur water again. And then you went to school and you smelled like sulfur. And you couldn't get a lather with soap. It was impossible. So I know what bad water tastes like, and it's not going to hurt you, okay? Drink regular water. Stop with the bottled water, as everybody here is sitting there drinking bottled water. Sorry about that. Anyway, Gateway Pundit, Justice Department fires 4 prosecutors who weaponized the FACE Act under Merrick Garland and jailed Christians praying at abortion clinic. They fired them. They're out, gone, mail online. Fury from LGBTQ community as Tennessee declares June as Nuclear Family Month and drops pride. Good. Got some other news from Armstrong Economics. The rise of AI in payments is not about convenience. Visa unveiled a new suite of AI tools designed to overhaul how credit card disputes are handled. And once again, this is being presented as a simple evolution towards efficiency and improved customer experience. Yet, when you step back and examine the scale of what is unfolding, this is clearly part of a much broader structural shift within the financial system towards centralization and automation. The numbers alone should make that obvious, with Visa processing over 106 million disputes globally in 2025, representing a 35% increase since 2019. And that type of exponential growth is not something that can be resolved through incremental improvements. It requires a complete restructuring of how the system functions, which is precisely what Visa is now implementing. They are introducing 6 AI-driven tools split between merchants and financial institutions designed to intercept disputes before they even occur, automate responses, and consolidate entire process into a unified framework where decisions are guided by a network-wide data rather than individual judgment. And once you move into that framework, the human element is steadily removed and replaced by algorithmic consistency. Every transaction, dispute, and outcome begins to follow the same predictive logic, and that is where the real transformation begins. Once behavior is standardized across a global financial network, control naturally follows. This is exactly the progression that the author, he says, I have warned about for years when discussing the digitization of money, because people continue to look at these developments as isolated improvements rather than understanding that they are components of a much larger system where transactions become digital, then tracked, then analyzed, and ultimately controlled. And Visa's expansion into predictive dispute management clearly places the system into that analytical phase, moving toward control. The introduction of AI models removes discretion, document analyses, tools that auto-generate responses eliminate interpretation, and centralized platforms that unify workflows create a single point of oversight, all of which together form the infrastructure necessary for a fully automated financial system, where decisions are no longer case by case, but system-wide. This ties directly into what I have said about central bank digital currencies, because the real objective behind these systems has never been convenience, but visibility, as governments and institutions cannot regulate or control what they cannot see. And once all transactions are processed digitally within centralized frameworks, that visibility becomes absolute. Visa itself is not a central bank, but it operates at the core of the global payment system. And what is being constructed here is the foundational infrastructure that governments will inevitably leverage as they move toward broader monetary control systems. Since a CBDC cannot function without the ability to monitor, analyze, and influence transactions in real time. And this is precisely the type of system being built. While this is being marketed as a way to simplify disputes or improve efficiency, the broader implication is that the financial system is being transformed into a closed-loop network where every transaction is monitored, analyzed, and ultimately governed by machine logic. This is not the final stage, but a transition toward a system where control over capital becomes increasingly centralized as confidence in traditional structures continues to decline. Yep, zero hedge. Here it is. Pardon me. Trump reportedly planning mass pardons of administration officials before leaving office. What started as a quip about anyone within 10 feet of the Oval Office has ballooned into something considerably more sweeping. I'll pardon everyone who has come within 200 feet of the Oval Office. The report claims that staffers who raised the possibility of congressional investigations or prosecutions into policy decisions tend to hear about whether preemptive pardons are on the table. The unconditional power to pardon is one of the most sweeping powers offered to the presidency. This term, Trump has wielded clemency far differently than any other president, dispensing some 1,600 grants to date. Many have gone to allies and donors, or those who had hired them coming after a social pull-aside or a round of golf. Some have received bipartisan criticism, including one to a crypto billionaire whose company boosted Trump's own digital currency company, and another to a former Honduran president convicted of conspiring with cartels to ship cocaine to the United States. In Trump's first term, he signed fewer than 250 pardons and commutations. The president has repeatedly raised the specter of pardons with White House aides and other admin officials, especially when staff have suggested they could face prosecution or congressional investigations over decisions people familiar with the comments said. Trump is known to joke about matters that he later seriously pursues, and the frequent references have led some aides to believe he is serious about the pardons too. They certainly have a reason to be worried that Democrats will attempt to weaponize their powers to launch endless investigations. They've already done it. History has set the precedent. We know they're going to do it again. They've repeatedly promised to do so. James Carville, he comes out and he says they all are going to be prosecuted without any evidence, without anything. He says we're going to prosecute all of them. He said it. They should be believed. In response to Trump's immigration enforcement policies, Minority Leader Jeffries not only promised to prosecute ICE agents and Trump admin officials. None of this has happened in a vacuum. Trump reportedly weighed pardoning White House officials in the chaotic days after January 6, 2021, but he decided against it. He later told advisors he regretted that decision. Democrats viciously went after Trump allies, rioters, and even Trump himself. Critics will certainly want to treat this as a constitutional crisis in progress. But before the outrage fully crystallizes, it's worth noting who opened the door. Who opened it? That's right, Biden did. Biden issued sweeping preemptive pardons for top officials and family members at the end of his term, including his family, Dr. Anthony Fauci, and the entire J6 Select Committee. Criminals all, citing the possibility of DOJ scrutiny under Trump. Michael LaRosa, a former communications aide to Biden, had the intellectual honesty to say the quiet part out loud, saying, by testing the boundaries of the pardon power, Biden cracked the door open, and we can't now complain about Donald Trump walking through it, even if he blows it wide open. I hope he pardons every single person that worked for him, every one of them. From MSN. What's that?
I want one.
He wants one. MSN. Ukraine claims first battlefield win using only robots. They won an entire battle without a single person on the battlefield. This is the new wave of the future. Ukraine says it has captured a Russian position for the first time using only unmanned ground robots and drones without deploying any infantry. President Zelensky described the operation as a milestone in combat automation, claiming Russian troops surrendered without Ukrainian losses. None. The development underscores Kiev's growing reliance on unmanned systems, which officials say have conducted over 22,000 frontline missions in recent months to reduce casualties. From Reuters, U.S. Senate narrowly overturns Minnesota mining ban, sending bill to Trump. Good. Went through the House, made it through the Senate. Trump will sign it. Washington Times. New York loses nearly $74 million for not revoking 33,000 illegal licenses for immigrant truckers. That's not a smart group of people. New York is not filled with, and I'm not talking about the conservatives in New York. I'm talking about the liberal government. They are not filled with a lot of, gray matter. There's not a lot going on upstairs. Okay, who said it? And you might get this one. You might have heard it. Democracy means simply the bludgeoning of the people by the people for the people.
Adams.
No? You're really close on that. Oscar Wilde. Yeah. Okay, I got a Catholic here for you today. What Biden considered okay, Trump is likely to have the same say. With pardons on tap, his aides beat the rap. that the Dems promise will come their way. So it won't come their way because they'll all be pardoned. Almost didn't happen last night. I mean, if that guy had come in and shot him, then Vance would have had to have done it, but same thing. It probably would have gone through. Mail Online, couple ironies here. Mail Online, kind of ironic. Woman jumps into ocean to save drowning man, only to later learn he's wanted for double murder. And then another person without a lot going on upstairs, Zero Hedge, Air Canada CEO. Okay, you have to know French in Canada because it's a French-English society. Air Canada CEO out after admitting in PR video that he can't speak French. He was telling everybody oui and bonjour and all that stuff, and then they found out that he was making it up. Such is the world in which we live. So from Sarasota, Florida to Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia, I'm Charlie Garrett, and that is your CG Prophecy Report for the week.